So we have another album that kind of came out of nowhere this year. Hibernal put out another album. They had already put out an album at the beginning of this year, and actually I believe it was the first album I reviewed of 2020. But we now have a new one. So yeah, let's dive into this one. Relics from Hibernal. So Hibernal is a one-man kind of post-rock, math rock, almost a subcategory of music to themselves. As I mentioned, it's a one-man band from Mark Haley from Australia, and Mark produces, writes, and orchestrates all the music, and he writes the story, and I'm going to get into that because each album is more of like a narrative play. It's a full-on, almost radio play where you have voice actors come in and produce the dialogue for the story that's going on. And I've loved all of his work since Replicants. My favorite is still In the Dark of the City, but Replicants, released in 2014, was the one that kind of caught my eye. And what caught my eye was actually the artwork of the album. And then from there, he released Winter and In the Dark of the City. And before that, he released The Machine. And each of these stories is a kind of a neo-noir, post-futuristic sci-fi in a sense. And the one that he released this year previous to this was Beyond. And I wasn't all that excited about Beyond. I didn't really like the story because really at the end of the day, it's the story that really captures my attention with a Hibernal project. The music is almost a secondary character, but it is a full-fledged character. And that's something that's very, very found on this work of Relics. I keep wanting to say Replicants, but that was the 2014 one. So Relics is a little bit of a different take on the Hibernal kind of MO. And that's really saying something from Beyond, which was much more of a sidestep for Hibernal. Like, Beyond was more of a classic sci-fi and less android, what do we mean with machine? It was much more of like, what do we mean in the vastness of space. This one is, again, our relationships to machines and our relationships to androids, what it means to be alive, what it means to have free will. And I also appreciate some of the more subtle themes that are found on this one, such as what does it mean to have power over somebody else and power dynamics. And the one thing that Mark had actually said about this project going in is that it's much more of an introspective project. It's much more of like a character development. It's less plot heavy as, say, In the Dark of the City or Replicants was, but it's much more character driven, kind of how Beyond was trying to be. And I feel where Beyond kind of dropped the ball, this album definitely took it up and ran with it full force. In a very broad brush, because I don't want to spoil anything, the story behind this one is in a post-future world where there was a war with androids and machines. Humans came out on top, and there are still a lot of humans that are being subjugated and looked down upon and basically taken for granted and being abused, and they're kind of like the worker class. And then you have like these watchers that are dictating and telling them what to do and how to work. This worker stumbles upon an old android, and he builds a relationship with the android, and from there chaos ensues, and that's just kind of where I'm going to leave it, because like it's really the relationship between the lead narrator, the lead character, and his relationship to his boss, and the relationship that he has to this android, this relic. Everyone is using one another and how that affects each other. And I feel like that was a brilliant theme and story hook for this particular project. And what I really love, and this is something that is true for all Hibernal stuff, is how the music actually brings about the emotional context of the story. And so within this one, because it's very introspective and much more based on the relationships between the characters, it's a lot more subdued. It's not quite as punchy or in your face as Winter or as In the Dark of the City. It's much more subdued. It's much more introspective. It's much more personal on that sense. Like there's not a whole lot of like big solid moments. Like there's only really one moment, and it was during this cause of fear and shock. Like that's the first and only time where the music takes forefront because you're overwhelmed with emotion. You're overwhelmed with this thought and the shock of what they're seeing in front of them. And I feel like there was such attention to detail in that sense that I couldn't help but like really applaud Hibernal for really putting that forethought into that project and into that scene. Because if all the moments before that had all these big soaring moments with the guitars or with the synths, and it created this big moment, then this moment of sheer horror wouldn't have landed as hard. So I really got to applaud him for holding back and really saving it for when it really counted and when it really mattered. So yeah, what else can I really say about Relic without giving too much away? Other than this is probably my favorite project from him since In the Dark of the City. It's probably my second favorite project from him. I love the story, I love the characters, and I love the music. And really, those three aspects is what makes a Hibernal album so special to me. Because those were the same three things that I love from In the Dark of the City. And I have to say that Relics is a great album. This is one that I love with my whole heart. I have really been digging it. I think that this is kind of the album, much like In the Dark of the City, that I'll be listening to again and again and again and getting more out of it. Like I said, the music isn't a primary character on this one as In the Dark of the City or as After the Winter was, but this one definitely, because it's a tertiary character or like a secondary character, when it comes out and shines, it shines so very brightly. So yeah, that's about it for Relics by Hibernal. What did you guys think? It's available on Bandcamp. I'll leave the link down below for you guys to check it out. I don't believe it's out yet officially on like Spotify or all those other streaming services. It's not even on the Prog Archives website, which I was shocked at. But it also kind of came out of nowhere, very similar to like Taylor Swift's album. So yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts on Relics. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.
Weeks instead of months, unlike the old days.
I move over and gently tug one of the plants free from the soil. I brush the dirt away and then bite into it.